Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is now our discussion on Chapter 2 of the Philippine Banking Laws. And the topic is on organization, management, and administration of banks. So let's first discuss about organization of banks. So when you think about organization of banks, of course, it pertains always to the regulatory agency. And that regulatory agency pertains to the Monetary Board of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. The MB, or the Monetary Board, can authorize the organization of a bank based on the following conditions. There are elements. One, entity is a stock corporation. Okay? Par value stocks only. Stock corporation, not a non-stock corporation. What's the difference between stock and non-stock? Stock, profit, non-stock, no profit. Okay? It's not for profit. Two, second element. Funds are obtained from the public, which shall mean 20 persons or more. Okay? 3. Minimum capital requirement prescribed by the Monetary Board shall be satisfied. So last time I discussed about capitalization requirements, but for the interest of time, I will be just emailing you about the capitalization requirements of banks per category. Like universal, commercial, they have different capitalization requirements. And then the Bangko Sentral also enumerates there ang capitalization requirements sa bangko with this stand-alone ra ba, head office na ba siya, or na siya pulo by 5, 50 ka mga branches, lain-lain po na siya capitalization. So, ako rang email sa ato tanan para magiyahan po mo as to the capitalization requirements per bank. The Monetary Board shall take into consideration the capabilities of the entity in terms of their financial resources, technical expertise, and integrity. And then, bank licensing process shall incorporate assessment of bank's ownership structure, director management, operating plan, internal controls, projected financial condition. So, muna siya yung mga basic requirement nato when we establish banks. At least 25% of the total authorized capital stock shall be subscribed by subscribers of proposed bank. So, if the authorized capital stock is 20 million, dapat subscribe ana niya 25% if you are proposing for a bank. So, 25% of 20 million shall be subscribed. Okay? Then next, 25% of each subscription shall also be paid up. It shall not be less than the minimum capital requirement. So, dili siya dapat muubos sa national sa minimum capital requirement. For example, the minimum capital requirement is 1 million. Okay? Or let's say 5 million para sa Royal Bank. Sa 10 na lang kay para inyo. 10 million minimum capital requirement. So, ang nag-subscribe niya, ang iyang subscribe share capital, let's say for example, ang iyang capitalization good niya is ang iyahon nga minimum capital requirement is 10 million. Pero ang imong proposed bank naa ka didtoy capitalization nga butang nato og 50 million. 50 million capitalization. Of the 50 million capitalization, 25% of that authorized capital stock shall be subscribed. Like muna imong authorized capital stock 50 million. Pero ang minimum capitalization requirement is only 10 million. 50 million imong authorized share capital stock. So 25% of that dapat subscribe. So 25% of 50 million. Okay? And then 25% of such subscription shall be paid up. So 25% of 50 pila man 12.5. Okay? And 25% of that 12.5 million shall also be paid up. Okay? Pero dapat dili siya muminus sa minimum capital requirement. So kung capital requirement sa usa ka bangko is 10 million, authorized capital stock of 50 million, 25% of 50 million shall be subscribed, and 25% of that 25% of the authorized capital stock shall be paid up, provided the paid up capital stock or paid up subscribed capital stock or share capital shall not paid up stocks shall not be lower than the minimum capitalization. Okay? So, kamo na'y bahala na ito mag-compute. I do not have calculator here. Next, incorporators or subscribers and proposed directors and officers must be persons of integrity and good credit standing. Katong mga director, mga officers, dapat maayo to sila. Dili sila mga buluyagon, dako siya utang kay dalagan na unya ng kwarta dira sa inyong capital dira sa mga stakeholders, sa mga stockholders. So mo na nga careful gud kaayo sa pag kuan og mga incorporators and subscribers and even proposed directors. Such persons must not be one convicted of crime involving moral turpitude and not officers of government agency or department charged with granting loans to banks. Dili pwede dito mga officers. Kami, for example, dili mi pwede dito sa mga bangko. Dili mi pwede ana. Okay? Mi pwede may mong director dito, mga officers dito, dili mi pwede. Bank is organized from 5 to 15 people as incorporators. Wala pa ni-apply diri ang one-person corporation na pwede ka maka-place o maka-put up or establish og bank. So, 5 to 15 pa yun pa ang pwede na to. Considering siguro because of the capitalization requirement, not only that, but because of the kaning mga issues pertaining to one-person corporation. Kay mura-mura raman na po na good siya o ganing sole proprietorship, but only under the one-person corporation, your liability is extended only up to your capitalization. Whereas in the sole proprietorship, your liability extends up to your total liability accumulated in the operation of your business as a sole proprietor. But under the one-person corporation, your liability only runs as to your capitalization. Okay? Universal and commercial banks that may open branches within or outside the Philippines with the prior approval of the Bangko Sentral. Other banks shall be governed by their pertinent laws. Now, let's proceed to stock holdings. Let's discuss about treasury stocks. I remember there were questions on this regarding treasury stocks because this came out in our quiz. The GBL provides that no bank shall purchase or acquire shares of its own capital stock. No? Walay bangko nga maka-acquire, makapalit og shares of its own capital stock. And second, accept own shares as security for loan. Pwede siya maka-accept og shares basta igamiton og security for except if it approved by the MB and will be returned in 6 months. Unsa may rationale ani? So if banks were allowed to have a lien in their own stocks for indebtedness of stockholders, prohibition against granting loans or discounts upon security would become ineffective. So muna rationale ani. If banks were allowed to have a lien in their own stocks for indebtedness, butangan nimo og lien tong iyahang own stocks para sa utang of stockholders. Prohibition against granting loans or discounts upon security would become ineffective. So, that's for the treasury stocks. No banks shall purchase or acquire shares of its own capital stocks. Pwede man a security for loan if approved by the Bangko Sentral, pero kinahanglang ibalik after 6 months. So next, foreign stock holdings. Kani. Foreign individuals and non-banks can own 40% of voting stock of domestic bank. That's the aggregate foreign voting stocks. A Filipino individual and domestic non-bank may each own up to 40% of the voting stock. And in this case, there is no aggregate ceiling. Citizenship of the corporation shall follow the citizenship of the controlling stockholders. And the controlling stockholders must be Filipinos, should be more than 50%. Okay? The percentage of foreign-owned voting stocks in a bank shall be determined by the citizenship of individual stockholders. We have the revised corporation code. Yan, discuss na rin about mga controlling. Usually in the Philippines, in terms of corporation, controlling yun ang mga Filipino. Okay? At least 60% of voting stock in any commercial bank shall be owned by Filipino citizens. But this has been superseded already by the new law, which is the entry of foreign banks in the Philippines. No, liberalizing the entry. So, mauna nga, pwede na sila maka-own up to 100% provided that dili mulapaw ang total banking asset sa foreign. The banking asset of the foreign banks should not go beyond the 40% threshold of the total banking assets. Okay? Pero in thrift banks, kung nagyapon, 40% nagyapon. Ang rural banks la, pwede sila maka-own og dili siya good pwede maka-own. Rural bank should be 100% Filipinos. Okay? So, in determining the nationality of banks, of course, control test is applied. Pero, kung makita nato karon na foreign bank, so ayang nationality kung asa siya gikan. Like kung China Bank, like HSBC na siya, so Hong Kong na. Ngayang nationality. Chinese and hospital nationality. Family groups or related interests must be fully disclosed in all transactions of the individual. Of course, as I said, those three accounts para mas certain nato in terms of transparency, para magka-problema, dali na nato matrace. Kaya ang kalagmitan nga nahagbungan o nabagsakan sa mga rural banks, kaya gidumala kini sa mga related interest. So, mangutang tong yung igagaw sa igagaw, igsuon, paryente, di na ka makapaningil tungod kaya maikog na ta, maulaw na ta. So, munang fully disclose na to ang mga related interests. So, board of directors, 15 board of directors. At least 5 to maximum of 15. 2 of such shall be independent directors. Independent director, person other than the officer or employee of a bank. Okay, na independent directors. All must be of legal age. A majority of them are residents of the Philippines. Non-Filipino citizens may become members of the board of directors of bank up to the extent of allowed foreign participation. Directors of merged or consolidated banks shall not exceed 21. Election, president, treasurer, director or not, secretary, resident citizen. The secretary should be a resident citizen. Not allowed position, president, secretary, president, treasurer. So, dili pwede ang president, mahimo po siya secretary. Ang president, mahimo po siya treasurer. Separate na siya. Meetings may be conducted through modern technologies. Pwede na sila magamit og video conferencing. A foreigner may be a member of the board of directors of a rural bank at the time of their assumption of office. To protect funds of depositors and creditors, monetary board shall regulate payment of directors under certain circumstances. Controllership, business is unsafe or unsound manner, and of course, bank is found to be in unsatisfactory financial condition. So, the Bangko Sentral will take over. Fit and proper rule. Power of MB against directors. Review qualifications and direct qualifications of directors. Kinahanglan yun na siya. After due notice, may disqualify, suspend, or remove director. Okay? So, dapat experience, integrity, education, training, and competence of the director. Dapat importante na siya. Okay? There can be also temporary disqualifications and shall exist until disqualification is done. So, banking holidays, banking days and hours, at least 6 hours a day on working days, Monday to Friday except holidays. May open in Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays for 3 hours, but they have to report to Bangko Sentral. For purposes of deposits and withdrawals, bank can extend beyond or early at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. It is for other purposes, they can exceed 6 hours minimum, but not to extend beyond or early of 8 o'clock and 8 p.m. Banks in airports or major fee sports can open 24 hours. You go to NAIA, ang bangko dito is 24 hours. Changes in banking days and hours can be made once every 30 days except during emergencies. For ATMs, classes, we have off-site and mobile. Banks may establish off-site ATMs provided that there is a report on BSP and adequate security measures. They are installed only in centers of activity. Like for example, landmark, mabutang dito sa Sibulan o ATM na diha. Butang siya dito, ATM ra. That's an off-site. Mobile ATMs are allowed to visit places with large crowds of people provided it has adequate security. Okay? Independent auditor for banks. Monetary board may require bank to engage services of independent auditor from list of certified public accountants acceptable to the monetary. In other words, you have to apply for accreditation. You cannot become an external auditor of banks without having a prior approval or accreditation or certification from the monetary board. Kamo, you are future CPAs. So, ganahan mo mahimong external auditor sa mga bangko. Kinahanglan mo process sa inyong certification from the accreditation from the Bangko Sentral. It's one of the most difficult, accreditation processes. So, financial statements sa mga bangko. Every bank, quasi-bank, or trust entity shall submit to the BSP its financial statements. And it must actually show the actual financial conditions of the institution, including its operations. Must publish such in an understandable knowledge one every quarter in a newspaper of general circulation. Consolidated financial statement, combined statement of balance sheet, and income expenses of two or more corporate entity. If it is a subsidiary corporation where more 50% of its voting stock is owned by a bank, na mga subsidiary banks. Affiliate, link directly or indirectly to the bank for 10% ownership or control. We also have interlocking directorship. Dapat submit po ni siya report. Common stockholders owning 10%. So, interlocking directorship. Director res bangko sa director po siya sa kabangko. Muna siya interlocking. So, publication of capital stocks. Banks, quasi-banks, or trust entity shall not publish the amount of its subscribed capital stock without indicating the amount of its capital stock actually being paid up. Okay? So, muna siya. Banks, through its president, shall inform BSP of the cause of the strike and the operations affected. Basta na ay mga unsettled strike or lockouts involving banks. After 7 days shall be reported by the BSP to DOLE, and DOLE now will assume jurisdiction. That ends class for our chapter 2. Stay tuned in for our next discussion on chapter 3 with Philippine banking laws with Dr. Greg Bakay. Thank you.